The meeting was canceled. Just like that, a single phone call, and my whole afternoon, my carefully scheduled workday, evaporated. Annoying, sure, but a part of me also felt a flicker of relief. An unexpected afternoon free. Maybe I'd surprise Daniel at home. It was early. He wouldn't be expecting me. Maybe we could even... The thought died in my throat as I stepped inside the front door. The house was quiet, too quiet. But then, a sound drifted from upstairs. Faint at first, then clearer as I moved towards the staircase. Laughter. Intimate laughter. The kind of laughter that snaked through you. A sound that belonged in a bedroom, behind closed doors, shared between lovers. My bedroom. My feet moved almost on their own, each step on the stairs muffled by the thick carpet, each creak of the wood a drumbeat in my ears. The laughter grew louder as I neared the landing, closer now, undeniably coming from our bedroom, from my bedroom. And then I reached the door I knew so well, the door to the room where I slept, where I shared my life, where I thought I was loved. I pushed it open, just a crack at first, then wider, wider still, until the whole scene was laid bare before my eyes. And the laughter, it wasn't just laughter anymore. It was something else, something intimate, something sickening. Because there he was, Daniel, my husband, in our bed, with two women tangled beside him, their bodies intertwined with his, their heads thrown back in shared amusement, their hands everywhere. And those women, they weren't strangers. They weren't random acquaintances. They were Sophia and Natalie, my best friends, my two best friends, in my bed with my husband. Their laughter, their intimacy, their betrayal, it hit me like a physical blow. A silent scream ripped through me, a scream that stayed trapped inside, choked down by the sheer, paralyzing shock of what I was seeing. But something else happened in that moment too. Something colder, something quieter, something unexpected. Instead of shattering, instead of screaming, instead of breaking down, I simply watched. And then I turned and walked away, calmly, silently, deliberately, leaving them there, tangled in their betrayal, lost in their laughter, oblivious to the storm that was brewing, the storm of calculated, ice-cold revenge that was about to be unleashed upon their unsuspecting lives. They thought they were getting away with it. They thought they were clever. They thought they had won. They were wrong. So terribly, devastatingly wrong. The bedroom door swung fully open, revealing the scene in all its grotesque detail. It was like walking into a tableau vivant of betrayal, a living, breathing embodiment of everything I had trusted, everything I had believed in, dissolving into a cheap, tawdry mockery of intimacy. There they were, Daniel, my husband, sprawled in the center of our king-sized bed, tangled in the white sheets, his arm draped possessively across Natalie, her blonde hair splayed across the pillow, her bare shoulder gleaming in the dim light filtering through the curtains, and beside her, almost pressed against Daniel, her dark hair a stark contrast against the white linen, Sophia. My best friends, both of them, with him, with my husband, in my bed. The air in the room was thick, heavy with the cloying sweetness of cheap perfume, the stale scent of sex, and something else, something almost smug. The intimate laughter I'd heard from the hallway still hung in the air, a ghostly echo of their shared amusement, their casual disregard for me, for our marriage, for the bond of friendship they had so casually, so callously, shattered. Daniel looked up first, his head snapping towards the doorway, his eyes widening in a flicker of surprise, quickly replaced by something else. Not guilt, not shame, not even a hint of remorse, irritation. That was the first emotion that flickered across his face. Annoyance, as if I was the one interrupting something important, something private, something I had no right to witness. Claire, he said my name, not as a question, not as a plea, but as an accusation, a sharp, clipped syllable that conveyed his immediate, selfish annoyance at my unexpected arrival. Sophia and Natalie stirred beside him, their laughter abruptly cut short, their eyes blinking open, dazed and confused, then widening too, mirroring Daniel's shock, then shifting to something else, something sheepish, guilty, yes, but mostly just embarrassed at being caught. Sophia was the first to speak, her voice a breathy, flimsy whisper, laced with a pathetic attempt at casualness that only amplified the grotesque absurdity of the situation. Claire, hey, she offered, a weak, watery smile stretching across her face, a smile that didn't reach her eyes that darted nervously around the room, avoiding mine, searching for an escape route, a way out of this suddenly awkward, suddenly exposed tableau of betrayal. It's not what it looks like. Natalie chimed in then, echoing Sophia's pathetic attempt at deflection, her voice equally weak, equally unconvincing, equally laced with a desperate, transparent lie. Yeah, Claire, honey, it just happened. We were just talking, and things just got out of hand. Her words, hollow, meaningless, dissolving into the thick, suffocating air of the bedroom, doing nothing to erase the image burned into my retinas, the image of my husband and my best friends tangled together in my bed, their laughter still echoing in the sudden, tense silence. I looked at them. Daniel, Sophia, Natalie, three faces, once familiar, now distorted, grotesque, almost unrecognizable in the harsh light of their betrayal. Three sets of eyes, darting, pleading, lying, avoiding mine, unable to meet the cold, calm emptiness they found reflected back at them in my own. Three voices, stammering out weak excuses, flimsy justifications, pathetic attempts to minimize the enormity of what they had done, what they had become, what they had so casually, so callously destroyed. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Something cold, something hard, something detached. The shock, yes, that was still there. A dull, heavy weight pressing down on my chest, stealing my breath, numbing my senses. But something else was emerging too, beneath the shock, beneath the pain, beneath the betrayal. A strange, unsettling calmness, an almost clinical detachment, a cold, quiet clarity that settled over me like a shroud, separating me from the raw, messy emotions that I knew, logically, I should be feeling. Rage, tears, screams, breakdown. That's what I should have been doing, what anyone would have expected me to do. But I didn't, couldn't, wouldn't. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I didn't even speak. Not a word, not a sound. I just looked at them. One last, long, lingering look, taking in every detail, etching the scene into my memory, cataloging every pathetic excuse, every cowardly deflection, every shameful, guilty face. And then I simply turned my back on them, turned my back on the bedroom, turned my back on the grotesque tableau of betrayal they had so carelessly constructed in my own home, in my own bed, in my own life, and I walked away, calmly, silently, deliberately, leaving them there, tangled in their lies, lost in their shame, oblivious to the storm that was gathering, the storm of cold, calculated revenge that was about to be unleashed, a storm they had no idea was even coming. And I knew, as I walked away, as I descended the stairs, as I stepped back out into the quiet emptiness of the suddenly hollow house, that this was just the beginning, that the real payback, the ruthless payback, was yet to come. A plush hotel room became my sanctuary, a sterile, temporary space carved out from the wreckage of my life. I checked in under an assumed name, a ghost in a gilded cage, seeking refuge from the storm I was about to unleash. The first thing I did was silence my phone, let it ring, vibrate, buzz incessantly on the bedside table, a chorus of desperate, pleading, guilt-ridden voices trying to break through my carefully constructed wall of silence. 67 missed calls from Daniel, 42 from Sophia, 29 from Natalie. I watched the numbers climb, watched the notifications pile up, each missed call, each unanswered text. A small act of defiance, a tiny assertion of control in a life that had suddenly spun wildly out of my grasp. I ignored them all, every single one, let them stew in their guilt, in their fear, in their desperate attempts to minimize their betrayal, to rewrite the narrative, to somehow, impossibly, make me the villain in their twisted little drama. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Not yet, not ever, maybe. In the quiet solitude of the hotel room, surrounded by the anonymous luxury of someone else's life, I began to think, to plan, to strategize. The initial shock was receding, replaced by a cold, hard clarity, a laser-like focus that sharpened my mind, honed my senses, transformed me from a betrayed wife into something else, something strategic, something dangerous. I started to sift through the rubble of my memories, searching for clues, for answers, for the tiny cracks in the facade that I had been too blind, too trusting, too naive to see before. Past red flags, whispers of doubt, nagging inconsistencies that I had dismissed, rationalized away, buried beneath layers of denial and a desperate desire to believe in the life I thought I had. Now, in the cold light of brutal reality, those dismissed whispers were screaming. Those ignored red flags were waving frantically, demanding to be acknowledged, demanding to be understood. Daniel's recent insistence on changing my life insurance policy. It had seemed like a responsible, mature decision at the time, a practical step for our future. But now it felt different, colder, more calculating, less about my security, more about his. Sophia's sudden, unexplained need for a massive loan, $75,000, borrowed with a breezy promise of quick repayment that never materialized. Just a temporary cash flow issue, honey, Sophia had chirped, flashing a dazzling, utterly insincere smile. I'll pay you back in weeks, I swear. Weeks turned into months, months stretched into years, the debt conveniently forgotten, the topic politely avoided, the money vanished. Natalie's sudden surge in success at work, her uncanny ability to land my coveted clients, her increasingly blatant mimicry of my design style, her sudden, almost unsettlingly close interest in my business strategies. "Just admiring your talent, Claire," Natalie had gushed, her eyes too bright, her praise too effusive, her admiration feeling hollow, insincere, almost predatory in retrospect. One by one, the pieces clicked into place, forming a mosaic of deceit, a tapestry of betrayal woven from years of subtle lies, carefully constructed manipulations, and a breathtaking level of calculated treachery. And then there were the hidden documents. Weeks ago, a misplaced USB drive left carelessly on Daniel's desk. Curiosity, a flicker of unease, a nagging sense that something wasn't quite right had led me to plug it into my laptop to open files labeled innocuously, Mercer Holdings, Q3 projections. But the projections weren't financial, they were legal. Documents outlining the formation of a shell company, registered offshore, designed to hide assets, to shield finances, to protect something or someone. Now, the pieces clicked into place with a sickening thud. Mercer Holdings, Daniel's shell company, a secret financial fortress built on lies, designed to conceal everything. And then, the final chilling piece of the puzzle. The casual mention from a nurse during a routine doctor's appointment, a misplaced word, a slip of the tongue, quickly corrected, quickly brushed aside, but enough to plant a seed of doubt, a seed of suspicion that took root and blossomed into a terrifying realization. Daniel, he had accessed my medical records, not just glanced at them casually, not just asked about them politely, accessed them, deliberately, secretly, illegally. And the reason? The chilling, gut-wrenching reason that made my blood run cold. He knew, weeks ago, months ago even, that the medical procedure I'd undergone, the procedure I had believed had made me infertile, had against all odds been successful. I could conceive now. I was fertile. I could have children. Daniel knew, and Sophia, my best friend, the woman tangled in my sheets with my husband Sophia, she had been conspicuously, almost brazenly, popping prenatal vitamins for months. The full scope of the betrayal, the depth of the deceit, the sheer, calculated cruelty of it all, it was staggering, overwhelming, but instead of breaking me, instead of crushing me beneath its weight, it ignited something else. A cold, burning resolve, a quiet, steely determination, revenge. It wasn't just a desire anymore. It was a strategy, a meticulously planned, ruthlessly executed, exquisitely calibrated campaign to dismantle their lives, piece by painful piece, to expose their lies, to shatter their carefully constructed worlds, to make them pay dearly for every single act of betrayal, every single lie, every single moment of calculated, unforgivable cruelty. The phone calls to Diana, the private investigator, and Greg, the lawyer, were brief, efficient, devoid of emotion, all business. "I need information," I told Diana, my voice cold, sharp, decisive. "Everything. On Daniel Mercer, Sophia Beaumont, Natalie Chen, leave no stone unturned." To Greg, my instructions were equally direct, equally devoid of sentiment. "Divorce. Immediately. And I want everything. Everything, Greg. I want to bleed them dry." The planning phase had begun. The pieces were in motion. And I, the betrayed wife, the unsuspecting victim, the woman they had so carelessly, so callously underestimated, I was ready to unleash hell. Revenge. It wasn't just an emotion anymore. It was a plan, a meticulously crafted, ruthlessly executed plan, designed to dismantle their lives piece by painful piece, to expose their lies, and to leave them with nothing but the bitter taste of their own betrayal. First, Daniel. His world was built on money, on power, on the illusion of success. That's where I would strike first, and hardest. The boardroom at Mercer Holdings was a monument to Daniel's ego, glass and steel and arrogance all gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. He stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, radiating confidence, charm oozing from every pore, pitching his latest deal to the board members. His voice smooth, persuasive, practiced. Westlake Development, millions on the line. His future, he thought, secured. He didn't see me enter, not at first. I moved silently, deliberately, a ghost in his gilded world, until I was standing right there, at the edge of the room, my presence a sudden, jarring intrusion into his carefully orchestrated performance. He faltered mid-sentence, his smooth flow of words stuttering to a halt, his confident smile freezing on his face, replaced by a flicker of something else, recognition, disbelief, and then, As the reality of my presence sank in, a dawning horror that widened his eyes and drained the color from his face. "Claire?" He whispered my name, a strangled, choked sound, barely audible above the sudden, stunned silence that had fallen over the boardroom. I didn't whisper, I didn't plead, I didn't cry. I spoke. My voice, amplified by the microphone I now held, clear, cold, and cutting through the silence like a shard of ice. "Gentlemen," I addressed the board members, ignoring Daniel completely, my gaze sweeping across their faces, each one etched with shock and morbid curiosity. "I apologize for interrupting, but I believe you should hear the truth about Mr. Mercer's proposal." And then I unleashed it. The truth. Raw, unfiltered, devastating. I laid bare his illegal dealings with Westlake Development, the fraudulent contracts, the hidden kickbacks, the blatant EPA violations, the web of lies and deceit he had so carefully constructed to line his own pockets, to enrich himself at the expense of everything and everyone else. I presented evidence, documents, dates, times, figures, unimpeachable proof, meticulously gathered, ruthlessly presented, leaving no room for doubt, no space for denial, no chance for escape. Daniel stood there, frozen, speechless, his carefully constructed facade of success crumbling around him, his face paling, his body trembling, his world collapsing in real time for everyone to witness. The board rejected him, immediately, their faces, moments before attentive and respectful, now hardened with disgust and fury. The deal was off, his career over. And that was just the beginning. The whispers started immediately. The hushed phone calls, the panicked consultations, federal investigations were launched. His assets, frozen. His bank accounts, his investments, his carefully hidden fortune, all locked down, inaccessible, gone. The mortgage payment bounced. A small, almost insignificant detail in the grand scheme of his financial implosion, but a detail that resonated deeply. A symbol of his utter, complete, devastating financial fallout. His claim to our home weakened. His life, as he knew it, meticulously, ruthlessly, systematically dismantled, piece by painful piece. Next, Sophia. Her world was built on image, on illusion, on the carefully curated facade of a successful businesswoman, a generous philanthropist, a respected member of society. That's where I would attack next. And just as precisely, just as ruthlessly, her boutique, Beau Monde, was her sanctuary, her stage, her carefully crafted kingdom of overpriced clothes and vapid aspirations. I walked in during the busiest hour, the lunchtime rush, the air thick with the clatter of hangers, the murmur of hushed conversations, the cloying scent of expensive perfume, and even more expensive desperation. Sophia spotted me immediately, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arching in surprise, then narrowing in thinly veiled annoyance. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Her voice, sharp, brittle, unwelcoming, betraying the carefully cultivated image of effortless chic. I didn't browse the racks of designer dresses. I didn't admire the carefully arranged displays of overpriced accessories. I walked straight to her, past the startled glances of her perfectly coiffed clientele, past the curious stares of her impeccably dressed sales staff, straight to Sophia, standing behind the pristine white counter, her smile tight, her eyes wary. "We need to talk, Sophia," I said, my voice low, clear, and cutting through the carefully curated atmosphere of her boutique, like a shard of broken glass. "About $75,000. Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic momentarily breaking through the carefully constructed mask of composure. "Claire, she stammered, her voice losing its usual confident edge, replaced by a nervous tremor she couldn't quite conceal. "I told you, I'm good for it. It's just—" I cut her off, my voice hardening, my gaze unwavering, unforgiving. "And about money laundering, Sophia. Specifically, money laundering with Daniel, using Beau Monde as your little side hustle." The color drained from her face, leaving her complexion ashen, her lips trembling. The carefully constructed facade of the successful businesswoman, the generous philanthropist, the respected member of society, it crumbled instantly, completely, utterly destroyed. I gave her no quarter, no chance to deny, no space to deflect, no room to maneuver. I laid it all out, the debt, the money laundering, the evidence meticulously gathered, ruthlessly presented, leaving her trapped, exposed, utterly, completely ruined. She repaid the money, every single penny, driven by fear, by desperation, by the dawning realization that her carefully constructed world was collapsing around her. She resigned from the charity board, publicly, shamefully. Her reputation, once pristine, now tarnished, irrevocably stained. Beau Monde closed its doors, quietly, unceremoniously, a whispered rumor, a hastily scribbled sign on the door, and then Nothing. Sophia fled the city, vanished, leaving behind a trail of debt, disgrace, and the lingering stench of her own self-inflicted destruction. Finally, Natalie. Her world was built on ambition, on professional success, on the carefully crafted illusion of talent and originality. That's where I would strike last. But no less ruthlessly, no less precisely, no less devastatingly, the client meeting with the Parkers. The Parkers, my most loyal, most lucrative clients, the clients Natalie had so brazenly, so shamelessly tried to steal from me, to poach for her own gain, to claim as her own. I arrived at their office building just before the meeting was scheduled to begin, intercepting Natalie in the lobby, her smile wide, her eyes gleaming with anticipation, her hand outstretched in a gesture of false camaraderie, a performance of friendship that made my stomach churn with disgust. "Claire, so glad you could make it," she chirped, her voice dripping with insincerity, her eyes betraying a flicker of something else. Triumph? Smugness? A sickening mixture of both. I ignored her outstretched hand, walked right past her, leaving her smile faltering, her hand hanging awkwardly in the air, her carefully constructed facade of confidence cracking just slightly. I walked directly into the Parkers' office, interrupting their polite greetings, their casual small talk, their anticipation of a productive meeting with their trusted designer, their trusted friend. "Mr. and Mrs. Parker," I said, my voice clear, steady, and cutting through the polite office chatter like a blade. "I apologize for intruding, but there's something you need to know about Natalie and our partnership." And then I revealed it all. Natalie's lies, the fabricated resume, the stolen portfolio work, the years of carefully constructed deceit, the calculated theft of my designs, my ideas, my very identity as a designer. I presented the truth, side-by-side comparisons of our work, timelines, dates, undeniable proof of her plagiarism, her lies, her breathtaking audacity in claiming my creations as her own. The Parkers listened in stunned silence, their faces shifting from polite expectation to dawning disbelief, then to a cold, hard anger that mirrored my own. Natalie stood there, frozen, speechless, her face draining of color, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her in slow motion. For her most important clients, for her professional reputation, for everyone to witness, the Parkers fired Natalie immediately, their faces etched with disgust and betrayal, their voices cold and dismissive as they ushered her out of their office, out of their lives, out of their professional circle, forever. And that wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. I didn't stop there. I reported her to the Design Association, filed a formal complaint backed by irrefutable evidence, professional misconduct, plagiarism, fraudulent misrepresentation. The consequences were swift, brutal, and utterly, completely devastating. Natalie lost her certification, stripped bare of her credentials, her qualifications, her carefully crafted professional identity. Her reputation, once carefully polished, now tarnished, irrevocably stained with the indelible mark of professional disgrace. Her career, built on lies, crumbled to dust, leaving her with nothing but the hollow echo of her own ambition, the bitter taste of her own deceit, and the crushing weight of her own self-inflicted professional destruction. Ruthless. Yes, my revenge was ruthless, calculated, precise, and utterly, completely satisfying. They had betrayed me, all three of them. Daniel, Sophia, Natalie, they had underestimated me. They had thought they could get away with it. They were wrong, so terribly, devastatingly wrong. And now, they were paying the price, a price measured in ruined careers, frozen assets, shattered reputations, and the cold, hard, undeniable reality of their own, richly deserved destruction. Victory. It tasted like freedom. Clean, sharp, exhilarating freedom. After years of being suffocated by lies, weighed down by betrayal, and choked by the slow, insidious poison of deceit. The divorce settlement, it was swift, brutal, and undeniably, deliciously mine. Daniel, facing federal investigations, his career in ruins, his reputation obliterated, had no leverage left, no room to maneuver, no cards left to play. He was cornered, desperate, and utterly, completely at my mercy. Greg, my lawyer, was a shark in a suit, a quiet, efficient predator who moved with lethal precision. He negotiated the terms with a cold, ruthless efficiency that mirrored my own newfound resolve. Unfavorable terms for Daniel? That was an understatement. Devastating terms for Daniel. Perfect terms for me. I kept the house, our house, my house now. Free and clear, no lingering shadow of his betrayal haunting its halls, no trace of his presence to taint its rooms. I kept the business, my design business, the company I had built from the ground up, the career Natalie had so cravenly tried to steal, it was mine. Solidly, legally, undeniably mine. Daniel signed the NDA, without a fight, without a whimper, just a defeated scrawl of his signature on the dotted line, sealing his silence, ensuring his complicity in his own downfall. And then, the final, crushing blow, he lost his finance license. Stripped bare of his professional credentials, his ability to earn, his carefully constructed identity as a successful, powerful businessman, reduced to nothing more than a disgraced, disbarred, financially ruined ex-husband. And then, there was Emma, my daughter, my unexpected, miraculous, fiercely loved daughter. I revealed the pregnancy during the final divorce proceedings, a quiet bombshell dropped into the sterile, emotionally charged atmosphere of the courtroom. A final, devastating twist of the knife for Daniel, a breathtakingly beautiful sunrise breaking through the storm clouds of my own personal darkness. Emma, a new beginning, a fresh start, a tiny, perfect human being who represented hope, resilience, and the unwavering promise of a future built not on lies and betrayal, but on love, strength, and an unbreakable bond between mother and child. Daniel fought for visitation rights. Of course he did, clinging to any semblance of control, any desperate attempt to salvage something, anything, from the wreckage of his self-inflicted destruction. But Greg was ready, prepared, ruthless. He shut it down, swiftly, decisively, completely. Daniel had no rights, none. He was legally, definitively, permanently excised from our lives. Emma was mine, solely, completely, unquestionably. And that, more than any legal victory, more than any financial triumph, more than any meticulously planned act of revenge, that was the sweetest, most profound, most deeply satisfying victory of all. My design business, it thrived, bloomed, flourished in the fertile ground of my newfound freedom, my reclaimed confidence, my fiercely focused determination to rebuild, to succeed, to create a stable, secure future for Emma and for myself. Loyal clients, horrified by the whispers of scandal surrounding Daniel and the pathetic collapse of Sophia and Natalie, rallied around me, their support unwavering, their trust redoubled, their loyalty a lifeline in the turbulent waters of my newly single life. New clients came too, drawn to my work, drawn to my resilience, drawn, perhaps, to the quiet strength they saw reflected in my eyes, the strength forged in the fires of betrayal, tempered by the ice of revenge, and finally, illuminated by the bright, unwavering light of hope. And then there were my real friends, the friends who had stood by me, who had offered comfort and support without judgment, who had seen me through the darkest days and celebrated my slow, steady climb back into the light. The friends I had almost lost, almost forgotten, in the isolating bubble of my marriage, in the suffocating fog of betrayal. I reconnected with them, rebuilt those bonds of genuine friendship, those connections of true loyalty and unwavering support. Laughter returned to my life, joy crept back into my days, and a sense of peace settled over me, a quiet, hard-earned peace that bloomed from the ashes of betrayal, a peace rooted in self-reliance, in hard-won wisdom, and in the unwavering, unconditional love I felt for my daughter, Emma, the tiny, perfect embodiment of my new beginning, my reclaimed life, my hard-fought, richly deserved personal and legal victory. 1 year. It's been 1 year since the storm broke, since the betrayals were laid bare, since I walked away from the wreckage of my old life and began, painstakingly, to build a new one from the ashes. 1 year. It feels like a lifetime ago, and yet, sometimes, like it was just yesterday. The scars remain, of course. Invisible wounds that still ache sometimes, a dull throb of memory, a fleeting shadow of pain that occasionally flickers across the bright landscape of my new reality. But the pain is different now. Less raw, less sharp, less all-consuming. It's faded, softened, become a part of the tapestry of my past, not the defining feature of my present or the looming threat to my future. My home, it's mine now, truly mine. I redecorated, slowly, deliberately, room by room, stripping away every trace of Daniel's influence, erasing every lingering echo of his presence, filling the spaces with light, with color, with life, with me. It's brighter now, somehow, more vibrant, more alive. The heavy silence that had once permeated its walls, the suffocating atmosphere of unspoken tension and hidden deceit, it's gone, replaced by the happy chaos of toddlerhood, the bright, infectious laughter of my daughter, Emma, the sweet, comforting weight of her small body nestled in my arms as I rock her to sleep at night. My design business, it's thriving, more successful than ever in ways I never could have imagined, never would have dared to dream, back in the dark days of betrayal and despair. Clients are loyal, new opportunities are constantly emerging. My creativity has been unleashed, unfettered, soaring to heights I never knew it could reach. I work hard, yes, harder than ever before, juggling motherhood and deadlines and client meetings and late nights and early mornings, a constant whirlwind of activity and responsibility and joyful, exhausting, exhilarating life. But it's my life, my creation, my success, built not on lies or stolen dreams, but on my own hard work, my own talent, my own resilience, my own unwavering determination to not just survive, but to thrive, to flourish, to build something beautiful and lasting from the ashes of everything I had lost. Motherhood, it's everything. Harder than I ever could have imagined, more demanding than any client, more challenging than any business negotiation, more exhausting than any late night in the studio, but also more rewarding, more fulfilling, more profoundly, breathtakingly, heart-achingly, joyful than anything I have ever known or ever could have imagined. Emma, my daughter, my miracle, my strength, my constant, unwavering source of love, of laughter, of hope, of pure, unadulterated, unconditional joy. She is my world now, my everything, my reason for getting up in the morning, my purpose, my driving force, my constant, unwavering reminder that even after the darkest night, even after the most devastating betrayal, even after the most brutal heartbreak, life goes on. And life, even after betrayal, even after loss, even after everything you thought you knew crumbles to dust, life can still be beautiful. Life can still be good. Life can still be filled with joy and love and hope and an unexpected, hard-won, fiercely cherished peace. Looking back, I can see it now, clearly, finally, with a hindsight sharpened by pain and illuminated by the bright light of my new beginning. The betrayals, the lies, the deceit, the agonizing heartbreak. They were brutal, yes. Devastating, undeniably. They shattered my world, tore my life apart, left me broken, bleeding, and lost in the darkness of despair. But they also forced me to rebuild, forced me to become stronger, forced me to shed the illusions, to discard the lies, to strip away the superficial, and to confront the raw, unvarnished truth of who I really was, who I really am, who I was always meant to be. They forced me to become me, truly, authentically, unapologetically me. And in that forced rebirth, in that painful, agonizing process of rebuilding from the ashes, I found a strength I never knew I possessed, a resilience I never imagined I could summon, and a sense of self-reliance, of self-worth, of self-love that no betrayal, no lie, no act of cruelty could ever take away from me again. And I learned something else too, something simple, something brutal, something profoundly, heartbreakingly true. I learned the power of believing people. Not in their words, not in their carefully constructed facades, not in their empty promises or their manipulative lies, but in their actions, in their choices, in the way they show you who they are day after day, moment after moment, in the quiet, consistent, undeniable language of their true, unvarnished, authentic nature. The greatest power you have, the most valuable lesson I learned from the wreckage of my past, the wisdom forged in the fires of betrayal, the strength gleaned from the ashes of my broken life, it's this: believe people. Believe them. Not in what they say, but in what they show you. Believe people when they show you who they are, the first time. Natalie, I heard, is still telling her version of the story, still spinning her web of lies, still trying to rewrite history, still desperately clinging to the illusion of her own innocence, her own victimhood, her own righteousness, still whispering poison about me, about Sophia, about Daniel, about everyone and everything except herself, except her own role in the devastating drama we all endured, except the brutal, undeniable truth of her own betrayal. But I don't care anymore. Not really. Let her lie. Let her spin her tales. Let her cling to her delusions. Her words are empty now, meaningless, powerless. They don't touch me. They don't hurt me. They don't even register. Because I know the truth. I know what happened. I know who I am. I know what I've survived. And I know, with a quiet, unwavering certainty that settles deep in my soul, that in the end, I won. The greatest power you have is believing people when they show you who they are the first time. Remember to share, like, and subscribe for more stories. Thank you for listening.